Hi everybody, welcome to Art Chat. Missed you last week. I had to do a birthday, another birthday, which is it's birthday season at the moment, it seems. Um, Everything's okay here. Hope you're all well. Let me know if you're here. Give me a wave or send me a comment. We're going to be talking today about how to use your cameras, iPads to take better pictures, not only for your artwork, um, for ideas for your artwork, but also for your to photograph your artwork once you've finished it. Which I know a lot of people struggle with, and I have struggled with in the past. So it's a good thing to get some tips on. So hopefully I can pass on a little bit of my knowledge that I've been passed by other artists and other professional photographers. Um, it really depends on what you've got. Obviously, I mean, I taught photography a few years ago in our village, and I think I had about, I don't know, 5 or 6 students, not 5 or 6, sorry, about 70 odd students, and pretty much every student had a different camera or a different phone, um, also different editing packages on their computers. So, it makes things rather difficult when you've got this massive array of technology available to you. And quite often, you'll have a phone or a camera, and the person that you're talking to has something completely different, which works differently and causes issues. You will have knowledge about one, but not the other. So, and also you tend to change things a lot. I mean, I've had, I don't know, not a new iPhone, but I've had an upgrade of an iPhone for the last sort of 5 or 6 years, every couple of years. They tend to stay the same. If you stick with the uh, same brand or whatever, they tend to stay roughly the same with a few additional extras. But yeah, so what I thought I'd do is I'd talk a little bit about the cameras that I've got. I've got an iPhone 6S, which is not, I mean, I think they're on the iPhone 11 now. So it's quite an old phone. I bought it earlier, sort of mid last year, and it's been grand. The one thing I do like about the iPhones is that um, they have really good lenses on them, so they take decent pictures. So yeah, the more up to date iPhone tends to have more lenses. I think this is the latest trend because everybody's taking more films, doing more online stuff. On the back of the iPhone, you'll find that there's 2 or 3 lenses here, and they've basically made the iPhone like an SLR camera. So they've got a wide angle lens and a panoramic, all these different macro lenses and things like that. So that's the only real difference between my phone and the more up to date phones. And you can actually buy attachments for your iPhone, um, which you can clip on the back here. So, like, I've got a macro lens that I clip on the back if I want to take macro photographs. And all that means, if you've got no uh, experience of taking photographs, is the macro is really good for very close up photographs. So, if you're taking a photograph of a flower, for example, you'll get a lot of detail close up. Whereas with this camera, if you get more than a sort of a foot away from something, it tends to sort of blur a bit. So yeah, so have a look at added lenses because it does help. You can get telephoto lenses and all sorts of things. They're not very dear. You can get them secondhand as well, which is the other thing. And they just, like I said, they just clip onto your camera and help you take certain types of photographs, or upgrade your camera so that you get all the multiple lenses on it and all that sort of stuff. So in my so if I talk a little bit about my iPhone, the iPhone is obviously similar to any other smartphone, basically anything that's got that sort of screen on it, with the apps on the screen. And then I'll talk a little bit about the SLR cameras because I use those all the time. And then the iPad is pretty much the same. iPad or tablet is again pretty much the same as what I'm going to be talking about with this one. And I'm just going to sort of sit next to my camera on my laptop so that you can see this screen and you can sort of work your way through the settings that I've got. Now, if you've got anything more basic than that, I mean, I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day, and they have a very old sort of Motorola phone from I don't know when. They haven't moved on to any kind of smartphone or anything like that. So literally, they've got a phone that makes phone calls and takes very, very simple photographs. It still takes photographs, so it's fine. But obviously, you're restricted by that phone. And I know some of you will probably still have phones like that. Especially I know some of my students at the Community Education Centre still have. I mean, they've kept their phone; they've not thrown it away, which is great. You know, why should you? You might already have a camera at home, so why, no need to be disposing of these things constantly and upgrading these things. Just use what you've got. Most of the older phones, the non-smartphones, will have a camera setting. You can take a picture. On that, there will be, if you go in to edit a photograph or something like that, you might be able to sort of edit it, take a black and white photograph, for example. So there might be very small amounts of photo manipulative stuff on those cameras, or phones. Have a look. But obviously, the newer the camera, the more things you've got to play with. All right. So dig out. It's always quite fun to dig out those old, especially if you keep them. Dig out those old phones. I've got a big technology box up in my my loft, and I go and get occasionally some bits and bobs from the old tech, and just have a play around, especially with the old cameras, because obviously you use old camera film, and you go through the processing in real terms. So that's really lovely. So okay, right. I'm just going to turn my laptop so that we can see this here. So, all right. So this is my iPhone here. Sorry, it's reflecting a little bit. I'm hoping you can see. So we've got my phone icon. So you would have your camera icon here. So if you click on there, you've got at the bottom, I've got on here slow motion. Well, we'll go from the beginning. So we've got time lapse, slow motion, video, photo, square, and pano. So if you've got a more up-to-date phone, you might have more options. So let's see, but these seem to fulfill what I need. So time lapse is just basically it's taking a film almost, but it's taking single shots. So what it'll do is it'll take a single shot every well, you can change it in your settings. You can change the amount of shots that are taken over time. So you can do one every minute or one every 30 seconds or whatever. And it just gives you that time lapse finish. So you just see sort of like a jumpy image. Slow-mo is what it says. So it's just a slow motion film. So all it does is it takes a film and then it slows it down for you. So you get that sort of old-fashioned feel. A video, you can take videos, really long videos, really as long as your battery survives. You can sit this camera anywhere and film anything for whatever amount of time it takes. Okay, and then we're on to photo. So obviously this is something that you will use. So as you can see, I've got my grid there on my phone. I just had the camera shutter up there, and you can actually see it a bit more clearly. But can you see there's the grid there? So on your camera settings, I'll take you in a minute, and I'll show you how to put that grid on your phone. And what that does is it enables you to set where you put your horizon, etc., etc. So this is called the rule of thirds, and we have talked about this in the past. It's a very old-fashioned, very simple compositional tool. So ideally what you do is you set your subject. So if you're taking a landscape and you've got a cottage in it, for example, you set your cottage on one of the crosses. And that just gives the eye lots of space to move around in that image. Okay, so either way, even if it's on landscape or a portrait, if you set your subject on one of those crosses, then your composition will be more effective in your final picture. And the other thing to do as well is to set your horizon on one of these horizontal lines here. Okay, so never in the middle, always either a third down or 2/3 down for your horizon, if you can manage it. Okay, same on portrait, a third or 2/3 down. Okay. And you can see there's a box appearing every now and again, a yellow box. And what that does is that's your focus. So wherever you click on your screen, oops, sorry. Wherever you click on your screen, that box will appear. So if you want your focus to be not in the middle, then if you click on any part of that screen, that box will move around and it will put the main focus of the image in that area. So if you've got a particularly nice rose or something like that, and you want the rose to be in that top right corner, and the rest of it to be not as important, then it will set that a little bit out of focus so that that becomes more important, that rose that's sitting in that top right hand corner. Okay, now to lock that, what a lot of people don't know is that if you press hard rather than tapping it, you can see that what comes up is this AF lock at the top, right? And all that does is it locks that focus in that. Can you see that the box is not moving anymore? So it keeps it there so it doesn't move around. So if you want your focus to be in the middle and stay in the middle, just press hard like that and the box will stay there. And then when you go off and come back on again, the focus goes back to being a tap focus. So you can move it around like that. All right. The other thing to remember is that, well, on my screen, if you use two fingers, then you can adjust. This is so two fingers, and then you get this little circle, and that is a zoom. So if I show you, you're actually using so you can see that that comes in and out. So that's your zoom. Set it. Now on some phones, I know you just have to tap the screen twice. So if the first one is for your autofocus and the second one is for your zoom. However, with mine, I have to use two fingers, and you just put the two fingers on and you just sort of, yeah, see, or you can do that and it zooms. Now the only issue with using a zoom is that once you zoom in on something, it very close up, the camera shake shows up more in more detail. So ideally, if you're going to zoom in on an image, the best thing to do is to either stabilize your camera somehow. Now, I know that's difficult if you're carrying a camera, but one tip that I was taught was to hold the camera So it's difficult for me to do this because I want to show you. So if you are holding your camera like this, then you've got one hand here. If you stabilize it right underneath on the volume button here, then that's extra stability. Rather than just holding it like this or like this, use two hands and hold the camera underneath like that and hold it as still as possible. All right, otherwise you can put it onto a selfie stick or a tripod, ideally. That's when you're taking cameras where you've used the zoom. Okay, it just shows up the handshake much more. I know that on some cameras you've got a handshake setting which stabilizes it a little bit more, but yeah, on these phones you don't have that. Okay, so again, so we've got grids and we've taken our picture. This is the reverse button. You may or may not know about this, but that reverses the lens. So currently I'm looking outwards, and when I put that on, the lens works this way. So normally the lens is facing that way, and when you reverse it, it's facing towards you. So if you want to take a picture of yourself and want to see yourself, then that's what you use for selfies and things like that. All right, so that's your reverse. And then up here, we've got some really important settings. So here, we've got the flash setting. So on there, I've got my flash off. Now, I always have my flash off, and I have that on my SLR camera as well, mainly because the flash, you don't actually need, with these digital cameras, you don't need a flash. Sometimes you need a flash if you're inside in a disco or something like that, but rarely during the day will you need to use your flash. So have it switched off permanently, just so that you don't forget, because if you miss an important picture because it's flashed, and all it does is if it flashes, it just whites everything out. So it's actually quite useless. And also the flash reach on these cameras is really useless. So it only goes about 2 or 3 foot. So it's not worth using anyway. All right, so I recommend that you switch your flash off. And you can do that on really old phones as well. As long as they're digital, you can switch the flash off. All right. Now we've got HDR here. It's just high definition. That just uses up a lot of battery power. However, it will give you a better quality image. So you can either have that off or on. If you press it, it gives you an off and on option. I've just got mine on automatic. So what it does is it assesses whether there's enough light on the image, and then if there isn't, then it switches to a HDR setting, and then so the camera does it for you automatically. It assesses the light. Okay, so another feature that's been added recently is this live setting. Oops, hang on a sec. This live button here, right? So live off and on, I find this most irritating because what it does is it takes a sort of mini film that like you're moving, but it's a useless thing. I don't know what, I'm sure there are uses for it, but from my point of view, I don't want it, and it's impossible to get rid of. So you have to literally switch the live setting off on your camera every time you take a picture. There probably is some way of getting rid of it, but I haven't found it yet. All right, so like I said, every time before you take a picture, just tap that and make sure it's off. So currently it's on, tap it, and there's a cross comes across the live setting. This is your timer. This is really useful because especially if you're going to put your camera on a tripod, then you can set a timer of on there. You can see 3 seconds or 10 seconds, which means you can run and get in the picture yourself, or just be calm. Timers are brilliant. They take all the hassle away from worrying about whether your photograph is going to be blurry and all that sort of thing. So I recommend that you switch those on. And then on the right hand side you've got the settings for different filters. So this one here, this sort of multi-circular thing, and what it does is it switches this on down the bottom, and I hope you can see all this stuff. So you've got different settings. So that's the original, and if you move along you've got vivid, so it just changes. You can see my dog there, look. So it makes the colours brighter. Oops, what we got next? Vivid warm, so that's just a warm setting. Vivid cool, I don't know if you can see that, the difference between the vivid cool and the vivid warm. And then we've got dramatic, so there's all sorts of things there, and these are just filters. So like they used to, including black and white, which is a really good one to use. So that is just like the old-fashioned cameras, and they used to put the filters on the lens on the front before they would take the picture to alter the colour, but this does it for you automatically, which is really great. And I just want to show you a picture I did the other day of some poppy seeds, poppy heads there. So I did a I'm going to packet up some poppy seeds. I've got millions of the things, so I thought I'd pack them up and give them to people, and I wanted to print a seed packet, so I made a picture of 3 poppy seed heads, and I thought, I wonder what it'll be like in black and white. So I put the black and white filter on, and there you have it. So you can see the difference there between a black and white image and the colour image. Now you might like the colour image better, but for printing purposes, you know, it'll cost less for me to print in black and white than it will in colour. So I'm probably going to use the black and white image. All right, so that shows you what you can do. Now you can change those settings. So if we go back to the camera, you can change those settings even once you've taken your picture, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so as soon as you come off your photograph and go back in it, you'll see that the setting is still on black and white. So you need to go back in to your settings up here, and you need to go back to the original setting. Just remember to do that. All right. Okay, so that's your camera. So those are the settings for your camera. Now, if you go into, now this was a photograph I took earlier on. That's the original. So that's the wall of my studio, currently covered in cucumber plants because they don't want to live in the greenhouse with the tomato plants. Apparently they don't get on, and they seem to be doing much better this year than they were before. Now, if you don't want to be bothered to put a filter on your camera and go into your camera settings, you can use something like I've got a blue ruler here. It's got a slight tint to it of blue. I don't know whether you can see that. But you can use any kind of plastic, see-through, cellophane, anything like that as a filter. So you just literally hold the filter over your camera lens like so. Yeah. So as you take the picture, the camera. So this is the normal picture, and then that is the picture with the blue filter on. Now you're probably thinking that picture just looks kind of blurry, but if you were using that filter out in the landscape, what that would do is just give you an overall colouring, and you know, use some acetate. It's really good. I was just using this. This was the quickest thing I could find to use as a filter, so I thought I'd just try it. But that's just to give you an idea of what it does. So if you were taking an image and you wanted it to look sort of misty in the landscape, then that would be a good thing to use. Just put that blue filter over the lens at the back and just try it. So that's one tip. Okay, so we're back to the normal camera. So I just wanted to go into the camera settings. So if you go into your into your settings. Now, all smartphones have this settings button, and if you go down your list of stuff, you will eventually come to, where is it? Camera. So I've got a camera setting here like that. Now on there, you've got the grid setting. So can you see here? I don't know if you can see that. It says grid. And currently it's on green, which means it's on. So if you tap that, it goes off. But I like it on, so I'm going to keep it on. That's where you'll find your grid. And then you've got other things like scan QR codes. Those are those little sort of square checkered things that you find in museums and galleries and hospitals nowadays, where you can scan the QR code and it sends you information. Mine's off at the moment. I leave it off. And then it's got your video recording times and your slow-mo recording times on there. All right. So that's where you'll find your grid. And then in your photographs, so in your photographs, you might have a photo setting like that. So I'm going to go into my recent photographs. So here is where you can edit. So I've got, let's see, picture of a poppy here, right? So there's Poppy. So what you can do is you can now edit this. So there's an edit there, and it gives you lots of options. So it's just loading. You don't need Wi-Fi or anything to do this. So currently there's a red eye setting there. I've got red eye off permanently. There's another button up there that doesn't really give you any options. There's a magic wand thing that just plays about with color. There's a plus and minus. That's for exposure. So if you go up and down with that, it changes the tonal value of your image. There is a brilliance, so that is just light, really. Yeah. There is highlights, so it just focuses on the highlights. There is shading, so it'll adjust the tonal nature of the shading, and contrast, brightness again, black point, so that sort of makes the blacks blacker. That's for sort of that's a technique that was used by professional photographers to adjust really good darks and lights in their black and white pictures. And then you've got saturation, color, vibrance, warmth, tint, sharpness. But there's hundreds of different settings in there that you should play around with depending on your and you can, if you play about with this and then you want to cancel it, you can just cancel. It'll say discard changes. All right, so you don't need to worry. However, I've got a tip for you. So down here also there's timer. There's oh, this is a good tool. So there's a little box with some arrows on it, and what that does is it puts a white box around the outside, and it allows you to sort of focus in on certain images. So it allows you to cut and crop your image. All right. So if you wanted to get rid of the yellow flowers above, you could just do this. However, I just want to show you a good thing, right? Which is if you go into your photographs, sorry, I could have done that before. Just one sec. I'll just go through these again. Go back to the poppy. Well, this is a different poppy, but never mind. So if you're going to make changes to an image, I recommend that you do this, right? So press this little box, which is this little box is for you to email it or share it online. But also it has an extra setting here. So it has copy photograph or duplicate. So I use this all the time. So I duplicate the picture, which means I end up with two of these pictures, right? So duplicate goes at the end of your photographs. So you've got two of them. So if you make a mess of it, or if you accidentally save it or delete it or whatever you want to do while you're playing with it, then you've still got a copy of the original. So always duplicate your pictures that you're going to play about with. It's a really, really good idea to do that. So if you remember, I went into this and then you can see all the different settings. So it allows you to share your image with people and also with Facebook, email, Twitter, all the things there. You just click on one of them and then it goes immediately to who do you want to share it with and what message do you want to put. If you scroll down, it goes into all these extras. So you can add it to an album, you can duplicate it, you can hide it, you can slideshow it, you can do all sorts of things. All right, so have a look at those settings as well. They're really useful. Okay, so that's the iPhone. Like I said, the iPad pretty much does the same thing. So my tips are for, let me just go back down here. So use the grid, use your duplication button if you're going to manipulate your photographs. Oh, the other thing about iPhones as well is that you can download apps that allow you to manipulate your photographs. So I use on my laptop, I use Photoshop a lot, and that's a really good editing package if you want to edit your pictures. But they've got an app set in PSX, which is basically Photoshop for iPhones. So if you go on there, I can't use that here because I don't have Wi-Fi connection, but you need Wi-Fi connection. So there's loads and loads of apps, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago. There's loads of apps for different things, but these are specifically for manipulating your pictures, making them look better, making them more colourful, changing the black and white, all that sort of stuff. So you've got things like PS Express, which is your Photoshop Express, which is really good. Color Effects, Artisto, Go Art. There's loads of them. Just go through them, find the ones that you like the most. You know, you can do all sorts now. You can add text on top. You can move the pictures. You can change all the colors. It's just great. It's great fun. Some of you will have phones where you can do that sort of as you're speaking, and all you can put all sorts of effects on there. Whether you like that or not is up to you. I don't mess about with stuff like that, but I like to change my images, especially if I've got a huge landscape, and for example, there might be a pylon in the way, or whatever, a signpost. You can actually remove those bits and bobs that you don't want in the photographic stage before you then make a painting from it. So it's really useful. That is really useful. You can also sort of make them more in focus, sharpen them, all that sort of thing. So it's really useful. So like I said, the iPhone is pretty much the same as any smartphone and iPads. So on the iPad or on your tablet, you will find that you have something similar. It might not be exactly the same as what I've just shown you, but something similar to what I've shown you. So just patiently go through and play with everything. But like I said, make sure you make a duplicate of your image first. Okay, and obviously if you've taken images on your smartphone and you want to work on your iPad, then you need to send them to the iPad. The iPad is great because obviously you've got a bigger screen to work with, and you can even draw on top of photographs. And we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, about using your photographs and then you can draw on top of them, fill them in with colour, all that sort of thing. So there's so much to play with. I just want to quickly mention sorry, I'm just going to lean over and knock off my ruler in the process. I just want to mention these cameras here because I know that some of you will have these type of cameras, or even just one of the mini digital cameras, all right, which are basically these, but in a smaller with less features. This is a basic Canon SLR EOS camera. All the settings that I've been talking about are on here on the back. In these settings here. So if you go into a menu, for example, so if I switch it on, You can go into menu. You've got lists of. I'm just trying to get that without the light on it. So you can change the settings on these cameras in the same way as you can change the ones on your iPhone. So if you want to take an image with this camera that is in black and white, you'll find in the menu there is a setting for black and white pictures. There's a setting for vivid pictures. There is a setting for bright pictures. There's a setting for all different types. But as I said with the iPhone, if you're going to take close-ups or pictures of things moving, make sure you use the right settings. So on these cameras, you've got a sports on the top on that disc. I'm hoping you can see that. There is a sports setting, and that's for anything that's moving. So if you put your camera on that setting, then if you've got a cyclist going by or something like that, the shutter speed is much quicker. So it opens like that really quick, whereas normally it will just open like that. And what it does is it captures the movement quicker, so that you don't get the blurry effect. However, if you want the blurry effect, you can put your camera on a setting and point it at a waterfall. If you put it on a long exposure, so I put it on the nighttime setting, that opens the shutter for longer. So anything that's moving will go blurry. So you get those really lovely waterfall shots where the water is blurred. So you can use the settings in the opposite way to what you would normally use them to create different effects. So again, have a play with that. It's a really good setting to use, actually, the nighttime setting. And you've got that on your iPhone and your iPad, and it's on here. There's a little box with it's a figure and it's got a star, and so it's like signifying the night. So you can that's what you can put it on for if you were wanting an intentionally blurry image. All right, but everything that's static will remain the same. It's just the moving parts of that image. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about, I just want to fill you in about what's happening at the community centre. But the last thing I just want to say with the camera and with the iPad, if you want to take pictures of your artwork, now this is notoriously difficult. We often end up having professionals do it for us, and basically what the professionals bring are better lenses and better lighting. So if you can sort of organize yourself to find better lighting and also to use your camera, your iPad, or even your iPhone, and think about what you're doing with it rather than just clicking a picture, because it's just taking a general sort of sensory experience, really. So it's assessing the darks and the lights and all that sort of stuff. But if you can manipulate your piece of technology to help you, then that's great. So I've got some settings that I use for my taking pictures of my artwork. Now I go outside into a sort of what can you call it? Not a bright sunny day, not full sun. So a cloudy, sunny spell type of day. You don't want harsh light. So yeah, today is quite good. There's brightness, but it's cloudy, so you're not getting really strong lighting on your image because that confuses the cameras. If you haven't got outside, if it's raining, it's Wales, most of the time it's raining, so obviously you have to go inside. Find a place where the lighting is as equal as possible. So if you can have your painting hanging on a wall that's facing a window or something like that, then that's the best. Okay, have it hanging on a wall so it's flat. Don't try and photograph something in the diagonal, because the camera will assess the lighting on a diagonal instead of on an upright. So put the thing on a wall, or put it on a camera and take it from above, directly from above. So you have your work flat on a surface and you take it from above. That's another option. And then I've got some settings here. So put it on a tripod, turn your flash off. the ISO should be 200. So that is to do with what it's like the old-fashioned type of film that you used to use. But an ISO you'll only find on one of these types of cameras, or the sort of mini digital cameras, but not on an iPhone or an iPad. If you've got a more up-to-date version, they may have ISO settings, but it's unlikely. Um, the aperture, again, should be on 5.6. If you understand aperture, it's just how much of the lens opens and closes. So sometimes you only need it to open a little bit if there's a lot of light, and sometimes you need it to open a lot if it's pretty dark. So that's what the aperture is. But the aperture setting should be 5.6. Again, I think you can do that on some phones these days. White balance daylight if you're outside. If you're inside, set it to your type of lighting. So if you've got strip lighting, tungsten lighting, whatever, there'll be buttons there for you to set that on. And then put it on a timer and set it for 10 seconds and take a picture. I know it sounds a big faff, but once you've set it up to do that once, you can take all of your pictures that way then, and you know that it's not going to change, you know? So that's really a good thing to get used to. Or the other option is to take your work, and if you've got a scanner, I know that a lot of printers these days have printers and scanners mixed. Then you can scan your artwork. I mean, obviously that's restrictive because of size. My scanner only scans up to A4. So obviously anything bigger I can't do that with, so I have to take a picture. But you can take it to somewhere like ProPrint in Carmarthen or whatever, where they've got these great big massive scanners and they're wonderful, really good quality, and then you can get your prints made there. So that's the other option. Okay, so I think that's all I need to say to you about that. If you've got any other questions about particular things, then don't hesitate to sort of contact me and ask me particular things. I mean, I've been talking for 45 minutes nearly again. And there's so much more that I could tell you, but I don't want to sort of bore you. So if you've got any specific questions, just let me know and tell me what you've got, what technology you've got, and then I can answer it according to what you've got. All right. Really, all I'm trying to get you to do is to take more photographs, especially for your artwork outside. A lot of people work from photocopies, images off the internet. It's much better to take your own photographs and then work from those photographs. And also to photograph your own work. It's much cheaper if you can work it out. It's much cheaper to do it yourself, print off yourself. If you've got a decent printer, you can make prints of your work, cards, all that sort of stuff. However, it is cheap. If you can get a good image, you can take it to a professional printer. However, just last week I did some watercolors, lovely little A5 watercolors. My camera won't pick up the delicacy of a watercolor, so I had to take that into the local print shop and have it scanned in professionally. They've got a very sensitive scanner that picks up watercolor. However, when I went in there, they said, yeah, it's notoriously difficult to pick up watercolor. So they will also struggle. So there's certain materials that photograph better than others. So always take that into consideration as well. But have a go and just look through those little extra buttons. Don't be frightened of using them. Just like I said, make a duplicate and then there's no issues. Or you can save your pictures onto your computer first before you do anything with them. So copy them from your phone, from your SLR onto your computer, leaving them on your phone as well, and then you can do what you want with them. You know, you don't have to worry about the fact that it might be a precious picture and you don't want to lose it. All right, I hope that's all okay. Please like and subscribe, follow me on Facebook, go and have a look at my YouTube tutorials. I always put them on my YouTube channel, and I put my art chats on there. So there's lots to look at there as well. I'll put this one on there also, just in case some people don't have Facebook. I'm going to be doing a couple of sketchbook walks in. I'm hoping to do one. Somebody requested one in Carmarthen, and one in Larne, but they're going to be weather permitting. So I'm going to look a week in advance at the weather, because in Wales it's very unpredictable. I was in Solva yesterday and it's absolutely uh, covered in sea cloud, sea mist until about 1 o'clock, and then the sun came out and it was gorgeous. Um, but we can't sort of predict from 1 hour to the next really what's going to happen around this coastline, as you all know. So it might be a sort of last minute. I'll put out rough dates and things like that, but I will let you all know. The community centre currently are still very much up in the air about when we're going back, how we're going back. They're currently assessing how many people they can have in the building at one time, and etc. etc. So we may have to carry on online for a little while. We may be able to use the hall, because currently with the restrictions, I'd only be able to get six, maybe 7 people in our classroom, which is less than half of what I normally have. So I'll let you know as and when I get updates about that, because I know a lot of you are desperate to get back, but we have to do it safely. I'm going to carry on doing some Zoom online classes. They went really well last week. The students seemed to cope okay, and though the camera was a bit dodgy, it was good. We got a lot of work done, and I got some good feedback from people, so that's been great. So I'll definitely do some more, probably towards the end of August. And I'm considering doing some private lessons, especially if this situation continues into the autumn term. I can probably get 1 or 2 students in my studio with me safely. So it might be that I run some private classes as well. All right, so have a go with your cameras. Let me know if you have any trouble, and keep in touch. Send me some pictures. I always like to see pictures. And stay safe, and hope you enjoy your weekend. The last weekend of July, can't believe it. It's gone so quickly again. We'll be into August, and then before we know it, we'll be back, and hopefully be back. All right. See you all soon, and have a great weekend. Bye. Bye.